G'day guys, if you follow this channel there's a decent chance you're a huge Khorne fan, and Khorne Demons have just received their own exclusive detachment that's not only super thematic and really cool, but also absolutely brutal in competitive games of Warhammer 40k. So in today's video we're going to break down this detachment in detail, talk about some tactics and strategies on how to use the new enhancements and the new stratagems available to Khorne Demons, and then we're also going to break down 4 lists on how you can feel this in competitive games of Warhammer 40k. So with that being said, let's jump straight into the video.
Blog for the Blood God.
Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Blog for the Blood God exclusive high quality dice. Hi, I'm Dean Simbeck, President and CEO of Blog for the Blood God's exclusive high-quality dice warehouse and emporium. Due to a shipping error, I'm currently overstocked with Blog for the Blood God exclusive high-quality dice, and I'm passing the savings on to you! Roll 9-inch charges, pass invulnerable saves, roll high for damage, and score lots of hits. Check out the links in the description of this video to pick up your set today. Alrighty, before we break down the details of this new detachment and the new stratagems and enhancements and detachment rules and all of the various exciting stuff available to Khorne Demons, I just want to comment on how much I really like the fact that GW have finally created an incentive for mono-demon themed armies. You know, I've always been a huge Demons fan, but I've never been a huge fan of the way that all of the gods sort of mix together. Doesn't really strike me as accurate lore-wise, and aesthetically I find it quite jarring when you see like blue things over there, pink things over here, red things over there, purple things over there, green things over there. It's just messy. And then in terms of the lore, I find it quite jarring because, you know, you're very rarely going to see Slaanesh and Khorne collaborate in a various exercise. So it just strikes me as odd. And it's always something I've been, you know, not very happy with. And I think the fact that we now have these mono demons detachments that not only incentivize but heavily reward people to run an army that's purely dedicated to a single chaos god, I think it's going to make the game much more immersive, much more on point with the lore, and also much more aesthetically pleasing. So I'm really, really happy with that. And I just wanted to get that out of the way before we go into the details of the competitive stuff, the tactics and strategies. So let's pull up the detachment now and have a look at what it does. Alright, so here we have the Khorne Demons detachment known as the Blood Legion, which is a cool name for a detachment in itself, and there's a bit of a narrative stuff here. But let's have a look at the detachment rule. There's essentially 2, which is really awesome. Most factions only get 1. These guys get 2 detachment rules. One of them is that each time an enemy unit, excluding aircraft, ends a normal move or advance within 6 inches of one or more Legiones Daemonica Khorne units from your army, one of those units can make a surge move towards that enemy unit. To do so, roll a d6. Models in that unit move a number of inches equal to the result, but must end that move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit. When doing so, those models can be moved within engagement range of that enemy unit, and a unit cannot make a surge move while it's in engagement range of one or more enemy units. So this is very similar to the Khorne Berserkers Blood Surge move, but there are some really interesting differences. So Khorne Berserkers, they have to end their move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit, whereas this is when an enemy unit ends within 6, you have to end closer to that unit. So say your opponent's, you've got a unit, Blood Crushers on an objective or something like that, your opponent moves out and puts 5 scouts on the objective to try to deny you, and you're like, nope, I'm not going to go for it. Then they put some combat unit on there. You can use your surge move to go into that combat unit, even if those scouts are closer, right? And that's really important. Whereas with the Khorne Berserkers, they can put something insignificant like a Rhino right next to your Khorne Berserkers and then shoot you. And even if you wanted to Blood Surge move into, the Hellblasters over there, you can't, because you have to go closer to the closest. So that's a notable difference, and it's a significant one. And also, it's triggered off enemies ending their move within 6 inches of you, as opposed to you being shot, which is also a significant difference from the way it works with Khorne Berserkers. Now, this is really, really crazy, and it pairs really well with the next rule, so I'll go through that before I talk about how it sort of is going to be powerful in the game. So the next one is Blood Tainted. And it's basically at the end of a phase in which a Khorne unit from your army destroyed an enemy unit that was within range of an objective marker at the start of the phase. If your unit has a higher level of control over that objective marker, that objective remains under your control until your opponent's level of control over the objective marker is greater than yours at the end of a phase. So what's colloquially known as sticky objectives, right? So basically what this means is if you charge somebody and kill them off of an objective, that objective's drowned in blood, it's tainted, and it remains under your control until your opponent controls it, which means you can, in your turn, charge something, kill it, then in your next turn, your opponent doesn't take it from you, and you're free to now leave that objective. You don't have to leave a unit on it. You can leave the objective and still score the points for controlling that objective in subsequent turns. Now, that in itself is amazingly powerful, but the way that this pairs with the murder call rule, because the murder call rule means that if your opponent ends a move near you, you can essentially surge move into them. And because it triggers when they end the move within 6 inches of you, at the very best, you have a 1 in 3 chance of getting into them, or the very worst, I should say. Because if you roll a 5 or a 6, you'll end up within engagement range of them, because they were within 6 inches of you in order to trigger the rule. So you've got a 1 in 3 chance of getting into combat with the thing that's just ended near you. And if you take something like a Bloodthirster, charge onto an objective, kill some scouts, right? Now you've got a Bloodthirster sitting on an objective, and that objective is tainted. Which means if your opponent just goes, cool, I'm just going to stay outside of 6 inches, because I don't want him to surge move into me. So I'm going to stay outside of 6 inches, and I'm just going to shoot that Bloodthirster dead. Well, guess what? That Bloodthirster dies on the objective, but that objective remains under your control, because you tainted it in your turn. Whereas if your opponent goes, okay, cool, so shooting him off doesn't work, because he'll continue to control the objective. So I'm going to have to move some bodies onto the objective, and then shoot him off. Which is something that they do to Khorne Berserkers all the time, right? Because World Eaters can obviously sticky an objective when they die. So a lot of people will just go, cool, I'm going to put a unit on there, and then I'm going to shoot you off. And now you can't sticky the objective because I'm on it, right? That's not going to work in this case, because if they move a unit onto that same objective that the Bloodthirster's on, you're going to be able to surge move into them. And now, if they try to shoot that Bloodthirster, they're going to be dealing with -1 to hit, and that Bloodthirster is likely to survive and then kill the thing that was on the objective, and so on and so forth. And this works even better if you do it with things like infantry or cavalry. So if you do this with a unit of infantry or cavalry, when you make that surge move and end with engagement range of your opponent, they now can't shoot you. So even if they wanted to shoot you off, they can't, and if they wanted to charge you off or get onto you, they have to get in combat with you. So this combination makes it really, really hard to take objective markers from Khorne Demons outside of just brute force charging them and killing them in the charge phase. Because if you try to shoot them off, they're just going to sticky it, and if you try to, outmaneuver them and put more OC on the objective than they have, or any of those sorts of tricks, they're just going to surge move into you. So really, really powerful combo of detachment rules. Let's have a look at the enhancements, because there's some really spicy enhancements in here as well. The first one is Slaughter Thirst, which is a 35-point enhancement, and it's an aura. And basically it's a Khorne model only, while friendly Khorne units, excluding monsters, are within 6 inches of the bearer. Weapons equipped by that models in that unit have lance, which means +1 to wound on a turn in which you declared a charge, or made a successful charge. So 35 points for lance is absolutely brutal, especially on things like Blood Crushers, Flesh Hounds. There's a lot of really cool use cases for that. And the best part is it's an aura, so it's going to affect multiple units. It's not select a unit within 6 inches, it's an aura. So that's really powerful. Next we've got Fury's Cage. It's 20 points, it's a monster only. And each time the bearer is selected to fight, it can use the enhancement. If it does, it suffers D3 +1 mortal wounds. You damage yourself. But then until the end of the phase, each time it makes an attack, you can reroll the hit roll and reroll the wound roll. So absolutely brutal damage dealing buff. It's on a monster model only. So you could put this on a Bloodthirster, and then when you're going in your charge, you can take D3 +1 mortals to yourself, and then you're getting reroll hits and wounds, which means you're now much more likely to use the sweep profile because you get more attacks. They're slower strength, but you're getting reroll hits and reroll wounds, so you're likely to do significantly more damage. So this turns your Bloodthirster into an absolute monster in melee, absolutely brutal. Next we've got Brazen Maw, 15 points. This one's nice and simple. It's a Khorne model only, and you add 2 to the charge rolls made for the bearer's unit. So this is really good on something that you're planning to deep strike in and then charge, particularly if you do it on a unit like Bloodletters or Blood Crushers that have an icon, because that icon's going to give them a further +1. So now you're basically dropping down, you're getting +3 to your charge, which means if you're dropping from 9 inches away, you're going to be getting very reliable charges from deep strike. So that's huge, and for 15 points, it's an absolute must-take. And then last we have Gateway Unto Damnation, which is only 10 points, so it's really, really cheap. It's a Khorne monster only, and when the bearer's deadly demise ability inflicts mortal wounds on a roll of 2+ instead of 6. In addition, if they've destroyed 1 or more enemy units in this battle, the bearer has the deadly demise D3 +3 instead of any other deadly demise abilities. So this is freaking crazy. Imagine charging a Bloodthirster into your opponent's lines, killing a Rhino or whatever, off of an objective, sticking the objective, and now you're sitting there. They can't shoot you off, because if they do so, you're going to sticky the objective. So they have to charge you. And knowing that you're a Bloodthirster, they're probably going to have to get multiple things in close, right? And now, when they do eventually kill you, every unit within 6 inches is very likely to take D3 +3 mortal wounds, which means any MSU is going to die, any lone ops are going to die, any, tough chunky units are probably going to lose 2 or 3 models. Like, this is freaking brutal. Absolute must take. I would pay 30 points for that without batting an eye, and it's only 10 points. So really, really cool ability there. But so all of that is crazily good. Every single thing on that page, whether it be Murdercore, Blood Tainted, or any of the enhancements, they're all absolutely brutal. But let's talk about the stratagems, because there's some absolute game-winning stratagems in here. First is called Wrath Undeniable. So in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has been selected to fight, has selected its targets, 1 Khorne unit from your army that was selected as a target of one of those attacks, until the end of the battle, until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit is destroyed by a melee attack, if that model is not fought this phase, roll a d6. On a 4+, do not remove the destroyed model. It can fight after the attacking unit is finished making its attacks, and is then removed from play. So 1 CP for a 4-up fight on death, which on things like Bloodletters is a bit meh, it's a bit mid, but putting that on something like a Bloodthirster or Scarbrand is absolutely insane. Imagine now that same Bloodthirster that we've just charged in, he's got the enhancement for a 2-up deadly demise, right? He charges in, he blows up something, kills it, stickies the objective, right? Now your opponent probably puts a little bit of shooting into him to soften him up by moving a bunch of units close, then charges in, they finally kill you in melee, and then you're like, well guess what? I'm going to spend a CP here, and now I've got a 50% chance of wiping out the unit that just killed me, and I still get my deadly demise, doing D3 +3 mortals to everything around me. The chances of them actually successfully taking that objective off you is relatively low, because you're just going to kill everything that was on it. Even if they were successfully charging you and killing you, you're still killing them back. Absolutely insane. Next we've got Gore Hungry Onslaught. So this is in your movement phase or your charge phase. Khorne unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time a unit makes a move, it can move through terrain features. So moving through walls, which is insane on Bloodthirsters again. It's also insane on Blood Crushers. One of the biggest problems with them was that they can't go through walls. So your opponent can just hide on the other side of the wall, and you have to go all the way around. And with those big oval bases, pivoting and moving them can be a real pain. Whereas this allows you to just go, actually, I'm just going to go straight through the wall. So Blood Crushers become insanely powerful with this. If you then pair that with the enhancement for +2 to charge, put that on a Skullmaster, put him in a unit of Blood Crushers, and now all of a sudden you've got this big unit of Blood Crushers that can come in from Deep Strike, get very reliable charges through a wall, and just wreak havoc in your opponent's lines. Very hard to screen that out, very hard to prevent that from happening. So that's crazy powerful. And then not to mention, if you put it on a Bloodthirster, because they have the fly keyword, they're going to ignore enemy models, and then this strat allows them to ignore terrain features, which means your Bloodthirsters can just go straight through everything and charge exactly where they want to and what they want to. Crazy good there. The next stratagem is called Skulls Beget Blood. It's 1 CP. You use it in your shooting phase. you select a Khorne infantry or Khorne mounted unit from your army that's not within engagement range, and select one enemy unit that's not within engagement range and is wholly within, or is within 8 inches and visible to your unit. Roll a d6 for every 4+, they suffer a mortal wound. So this is effectively your grenades strat from the core rules, but you're able to use it on these units that don't have the grenades keyword. So that's really cool, and that's going to allow you to do some pretty serious mortal wounds, because if you're able to get blood crushers who do mortal wounds on the charge, and then you're able to also go in and do this, you're going to be doing a ton of mortal wounds there. And then if you're going to be doing a deadly demise on your monster, he's dishing out D3+3 mortal wounds in an aura. One thing that Khorne armies have generally not had access to was bulk mortal wound output. But this detachment definitely gives you some interesting ways of achieving those mortal wounds. Alright, next we have Blood Begets Skulls. Use this in your charge phase. 1. Legiones Daemonica Khorne unit from your army that has not been selected to charge yet this phase. Until the end of the phase, your unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. This is also, yet again, really fantastic. Advance and charge on a Bloodthirster that can go through walls is insane. Advance and charge on Blood Crushers is insane. It's insane on Fleshhounds. It's just one of those things that's going to make your army a lot faster and allow you to activate those charges in those turns when you really want to get stuck into your opponent. And it's also worth noting that you use this in your charge phase. So if you've got like 3 Bloodthirsters and there's a target that's a decent distance away, you can actually advance all 3 of them. And then whichever one got the highest advance, when it comes time to charge, you can then use the stratagem on that one. So it's not like you have to use it in the movement phase, pick one, and then roll a crappy charge for that one and be like, oh, damn it, I wish I could have used it on one of the other ones. This allows you to basically select which unit's going to get that charge after rolling your advance, which is very, very good. And it also plays around if your opponent has like reactive moves or anything of that nature. They're not going to be, if you advance up and then they reactive move away, you just don't spend the CP. And you're like, well, I wasn't getting the charge anyway, so now I don't have to spend the CP on it. It's very, very good. There's lots of interplay there. Next, we have Fool's Flight. Now, this stratagem, it's 2 CP, so it's pretty expensive, but I can definitely see this winning a lot of games. So you use it in your movement phase just after an enemy unit falls back. 1 Daemonica Khorne unit from your army that's within 6 inches of that enemy unit and would be eligible to declare a charge against that enemy unit. Your unit now declares a charge that targets only that enemy unit. You resolve the charge. Note, even if this charge is successful, your unit does not receive any charge bonus this turn. So your opponent goes to fall back. If they end that fallback within 6 inches of you, you can declare a charge into them, get back into combat in their movement phase. You're charging your opponent in your opponent's movement phase. This is insane. Now, there's a lot of enemy units that only have a 6-inch move, which basically means as long as when you charge them, you get a couple of guys just past base contact, because obviously if you're directly in base to base, they have a 6-inch move, and they move back in a perfect straight line, they won't be within 6 inches of you, right? Because they'll be essentially within base contact of 6 inches, right? But if they have a circle base and you're just slightly past it by going around the sides of the circle, like you're in base contact on this side and that side, so there's that sort of overlap, now, no matter what direction they move, they'll be within 6 inches of one of your guys. Or if they've got like a big enough unit and you're able to sort of get into the middle of the unit, they're going to struggle to move directly straight back. And then you're going to be able to make a charge. You're getting your +1 to your charge from your icon in the unit, which means that you've got a very good chance of getting back into combat with them, which means if you have a big unit of Blood Crushers or something, they come in from Deep Strike, they get a reliable charge because you've given them the enhancement, you're getting your +3 to your charge. You charge into something, you kill it, you then consolidate into something else, tag it, then in your opponent's turn they go, well, I want to shoot those Blood Crushers, so they fall back, and then you just go, cool, I'm going to spend 2 CP, and now I'm going to charge back into you, and now they can't shoot your Blood Crushers. You're picking up something else in their turn. Absolutely insane. Insanely powerful. And there's just so many ways that this interacts with the various other elements in the list. Like, it's truly going to be brutal. We'll go into the last stratagem, and then I want to talk about a few different list ideas, and we'll sort of break down some of this in even greater detail. The last one is called Sheathed in Brass. It's a 1 CP. Use it in your opponent's shooting phase just after they've selected their targets. and one Khorne unit from your army that was a target of one of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, models in that unit have a save characteristic of 3+. So you take a unit of Bloodletters, you charge them, you kill them off of an objective or whatever, you've stickied that objective, then you also make sure that you're in cover. Your opponent goes to shoot at you with their AP1, heavy bolters or whatever, and you can go, cool. Instead of getting a 5-up invulnerable save, I'm going to spend 1 CP, and now I get a 3-up armor save, and I'm in cover, so your -1 is effectively nullified, which means I'm now getting a 3-up save, as opposed to a 5-up save, which means you're going to have approximately twice as many Bloodletters left alive at the end, depending on, obviously, what your opponent shoots into you, but, that's crazy. And the fact that this is reactive means that if they're shooting at you with high AP weaponry, you just don't use the strat. And if they're shooting at you with low AP weaponry, you can use this stratagem and you can make your units significantly tougher. Works really well on Blood Crushers as well. Works on Bloodthirsters. Those have the 4-up invulnerable save, so it's a little bit less impactful there. But being able to put on a Bloodletter or a Fleshhound a 3-up armor save is absolutely crazy, and it's going to push the durability of your units through the roof. And we already know that we have no struggles when it comes to dealing damage. It's the durability that's often the challenge, and this goes a long way towards solving that challenge. So literally every single stratagem is an A+, every enhancement is an A+, and you get 2 detachment rules, both of which are A+. So this is crazy. Now, one of the other things worth noting is that it doesn't force you to take Khorne Demons. It's just all of these things only impact Khorne Demons. So if you wanted to run a list that had, some Plague Bearers to hold your backfield objective, or, a Great Unclean one to be really tough and move up the center of the battlefield and just tank, you can still do that within this detachment, but I think that this is going to heavily incentivize people to run a mono Khorne Demons detachment, because you're going to get so much utility out of all of these buffs. They're fantastic. Managing your CP is going to be probably the biggest challenge, because there's some 2 CP stratagems here that you want to make sure you have that available to you, because you might just win the game straight off the back of that. So really, really powerful, really, really exciting. Let's jump over now and have a look at some of the lists that this army can put together. Alrighty, so here we have 4 lists that I've wrote. And basically what I've done is each one of these has been written to reflect a certain theme that you can run. And now each one of these is designed to be thematic as well as powerful, and optimized around taking advantage of some or more of the various things we've discussed so far in the video. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about a balanced list that incorporates components from all of them. And the balanced list is probably the direction you'd head if you were going to a tournament, but I want to talk about just a few of the different sort of themed lists to really nail in and zero in on the various strategies and tactics available in this new detachment. So let's have a look at the Blood Legion infantry list first. So this one's obviously themed around infantry, shocker. And you'll notice, just like with Creations of Bile video that I did recently, I don't have the updated app with all of the enhancements in there, so we're going to allow a few points at the back here. Most of them are going to allow 60 points because there's a really good combination of stratagem of enhancements that costs 60 points. So you got 3 Blood Masters, a Bloodthirster, who's your Warlord, 3 Rend Masters, and the Skull Taker. Now I know it's an infantry themed list and we've got a few non-infantry models in here, but there's a very important reason for them. You'll notice the Rend Masters in every list, and that's because the Rend Masters have an ability that stacks, and it's basically select an enemy target, and all Khorne Demons that attack that target gain like +1 strength, damage, and AP. And that pushes the damage output of all of the units in the army to really crazy amounts. And because it stacks, you can go, cool, there's some really tough unit, I'm going to put all 3 Rend Masters are going to target that unit, and then I'm just going to charge it with a unit of Bloodletters, and they'll be like 5 damage Bloodletters, and they're going to absolutely eviscerate that unit. Or you can split them up. You can go, cool, most of my opponent is 3 wound models, so I'm going to go, cool, this Rend Master is going to target those chosen, this Rend Master is going to target those chosen, and that way I'm pushing Bloodletters over here to 2 damage, and the Blood Crushers over here to 3 damage, sorry. There's a lot of utility with the Rend Masters, so you'll see them in a lot of lists, and you'll also see the Bloodthirster in there simply because that strategy that I talked about of charging a Bloodthirster in and then using that 2-up Deadly Demise, I just think that's too good to not include in every list. That's insanely powerful. So these elements you'll see in every list, but the rest is going to pivot around the theme. So we've got the Bloodmasters here. One of them is there to be able to give +2 to the charges to his unit, and another one's there to be able to give Lance to nearby models. Really, really powerful. And then the Skulltaker, he's just an absolute monster with his Dev Wounds. Then we've got 4 units of Bloodletters, one for the Skulltaker and then one for each Bloodmaster. Now it's worth noting that the Bloodmaster's ability is going to synergize very well with this detachment, which is that each time this unit consolidates, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3. So now when you've got that situation where if your enemy falls back and ends within 6 inches of you, you can charge them. This is going to proc off that because you're going to be able to go, cool, I'm going to charge you, and then after I fight I can consolidate and I can really wrap my models around you, making it very hard for you to, even if you've got a 12-inch move characteristic, it's going to be hard for you to move out and end somewhere that's not within 6 of my unit, because it's just this big unit of infantry that's completely encircling you. So that's going to be really, really powerful, and it's going to combo off of a few things. And then that also means that you can get enhancements in all of those units as well, so that's really cool. Bloodletters, and then we round it out with 3 units of Fleshhounds, and the idea here, the way that this list would essentially pilot, is you'd put a lot of your Bloodletters in Deep Strike so that they're safe. You'd put Fleshhounds and a Bloodthirster on the table, and then with your Renmasters you might put 1 or 2 of them in reserves and 1 on the board depending on the matchup. And the idea is that you would want to use your Fleshhounds to skirmish with your opponent's small things. They put some cultists out onto an objective, or some scouts or something. You want to skirmish with your Fleshhounds and use them as sort of your early turn screens and your early turn scrappers. And then you're going to be basically just wanting to rapid ingress and charge your Bloodletters, dropping the one with the banner that gives him the +3 inches on the deep strike. You just deep strike him and charge. So you're going to be able to hit with those Bloodletters in really effective and impactful spots. Meanwhile, the Bloodthirster goes and does massive damage, and then the Renmasters are relatively tough. They hit relatively hard, but they're mainly there for that aura, or for that targeted debuff on your opponent, where you're going to be able to get that plus damage and really make sure that the things that the Bloodletters need to kill, they kill. So that's this list. I think this is really cool, and it takes advantage of that 6-inch consolidate move on 3 of your Bloodletter units. It's going to be absolutely crazy. You're going to be able to tag a whole swath of your opponent's army and make it so that when they fall back, you can just charge into them again. Very, very cool. And it also means that, they fall back, you charge into them, and then in their fight phase, you're going to be able to use that consolidate to string around and tag a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, very cool. So that's the Blood Legion Infantry. Next one we have is the Blood Legion Cavalry. So this has got the Bloodthirster, the 2 Renmasters this time, so that's the same Bloodthirster with that enhancement that's going to give him the exploding on a 2+. 2 Blood Thrones this time. Then we've got 3 Skullmasters. One of those is going to take the aura of Lance, and one of them is going to take the +2 to charge. Then you've got 3 big units of Blood Crushers, 2 units of Fleshhounds, and then 2 Skull Cannons. So this is all themed around being your big cavalry kind of units. And the idea here is that those Skullmasters, with their Blood Crusher units, they do decent amount of mortal wounds on the charge. You're going to be able to use that pseudo grenade stratagem to do even more mortal wounds. And these guys are really good because, like the Bloodletters, when they charge something, if your opponent, when they surge move into something, if your opponent goes, I'm going to end within 6 inches, and you surge move into them, you now can't shoot those crushers because they're within engagement range of an enemy unit. So, and because they're relatively tough units, it's going to be really hard for your opponent to deal with them. So I'm a really big fan of the Blood Crushers, and they also take great use of the stratagem that allows them to charge through walls, because you can basically just put 1 on the board, 2 in Deep Strike, and then you rapid ingress 1, rapid ingress the other, or you can put all 3 in Deep Strike. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do here, because those units are 320 points, which means you can put 3 units in Deep Strike, because each one is 330, or 320, sorry. That might change a little bit with the enhancements, I'd have to check that, but basically you put a bunch of these guys in Deep Strike. One of them's going to drop down with the enhancement that gives him the +3 charge. He's just going to wreck shit. The other 2 are going to rapid ingress. it's going to be real painful for your opponent to stop them from getting in to do what they want to do. Meanwhile, you've got, Renmasters, Bloodthirsters running around, sticking objectives as they kill things. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. But the next list is probably the one you'd want to play if you would really just wanted to troll and have fun and really just go crazy, which is the monsters list. So here we've got 3 Bloodthirsters, 3 Rendmasters, Scarbrand, and then 3 units of Fleshhounds. And now this one you wouldn't necessarily need to deep strike anything. You could just put it all on the table. Again, your Fleshhounds are your early skirmishers. But the main thing here is that you've essentially got 4 big monsters, each one of which can reactively have a 3-up save, each one of which is going to kill things off objectives and sticky them, and if they surge move into something, they're going to absolutely destroy that unit in melee. So really, really powerful stuff, and all of them taking massive advantage of the ability to move through walls. Most of them are going to have fly, and it's going to be very difficult for your opponent to stop those Bloodthirsters from getting where they want to go. Moving through walls and advancing and charging on something big like a Bloodthirster is crazy strong. So that's the last of the theme lists. Now let's get into the balance list. Now this is the list that you would probably look into taking if you were trying to win a tournament. You're going for a competitive list, so you want to make sure that you're taking maximum advantage of each of the different abilities here. And there's also a really sneaky trick in this one that I think you're going to really like as well. So we've got a Bloodthirster. He's going to be with the enhancement that lets him explode on a 2-up, who's really good, as we said. 2 Renmasters. Now we've got Rotigus in here. Now you might be thinking, why Rotigus? Didn't Dean just say that this heavily incentivizes mono factions? Well, Rotigus has a really crazy rule that pairs really well with that ability that lets you charge them when they fall back, which is that while an enemy unit's within 6 inches of this model, halve the move and objective control characteristics of models in the unit, right? So he's reducing the objective control, which is fine. That's an added bonus. But halving the movement means that if you get Rotigus into something, Bloodthirster charges into something, Bloodthirster, they kill it, then they pile into the next thing, right? When your opponent goes to fall back, they're at half movement, which means if they had a 12-inch movement, that now reduces to 6 inches, which means if you've positioned yourself well, they're not going to be able to end outside of that 6 inches, which means you're going to be able to charge them again, right? So even if they have a 12-inch move, they are trapped. And you can basically just run those 2 around together and keep doing that. It's crazy good. And then Rotigus himself is a big, tough, chunky guy, which is really good for just running up the center of the board and sitting on the central objective. Any bullets that they put into him are bullets that they're not putting into your big things like your Bloodthirsters and your Renmasters. He's just a chunky boy, and he's a good boy. Then we've got Scarbrand in the list as well, being able to use his aura to buff the damage output of your units. His this one here, where you basically friendly Khorne monsters, friendly Khorne units that are not monsters or vehicles, which is your Blood Crushers, your Bloodletters, are going to add 1 to their attacks characteristic, which is really good. And then also, while enemy units within 6 inches, they might not be able to make a fallback check. So this is a 2-pronged attack, where basically if you throw in Scarbrand, they might not be able to fall back, and even if they do, you might just chase them down anyway. It really just forces your opponent to stay locked and engaged in combat with you. So that's really cool. Then we've basically got a Skullmaster and a unit of Blood Crushers. We've got a unit of Bloodletters here. And then we've got a unit of Plague Bearers. And the Plague Bearers are there for sticking your home objective, because in this detachment, in order to sticky an objective, you need to kill an enemy unit on the objective, and you're not likely to do that on your home for a significant amount of time. So you basically start with your Plague Bearers on the objective, they'll sticky the objective, and then they can move out to create big screens in your backfield, while your Bloodletters and your Bloodthirsters and all of these things go in and do their damage. And then we've got the units of Fleshhounds, which again are really good early game trading pieces. And like those Fleshhounds actually do pretty significant damage when they're buffed up by a couple of Renmasters. And see if Scarbrand's buff works on them as well, because they're not monsters or vehicles. So you can get Fleshhounds doing crazy amounts of damage if you want to. But yeah, that's where we're at with this balanced list. Now, I think this is something that could very easily win a GT. I think there's a lot of armies that are just going to be like, I don't have an answer for all those fallback shenanigans. You know, Scarbrand preventing me from falling back really, really hurts me. And then even if I am successfully able to fall back, the guy that I just fell back from is going to charge me anyway, means that all of these heavily shooting themed armies are going to really struggle into this. You know, and with this current meta, it's looking like we've got a lot of Space Marine players bringing heavy shooting with their double oath Gilliman, and with the +1 to wound and reroll hits is absolutely brutal shooting. But being able to go, well, guess what? You can't shoot me because I'm within engagement range of you because I've tagged you. Scarbrand's prevented you from falling back. That one unit that did successfully fall back, I've been able to charge. That sort of stuff. Really, really powerful. Rodigus being able to prevent those fast units from falling back is also really good. There's a lot of units out there, like the armies out there, like the new Necrons vehicle detachment, that's really, really crazily powerful shooting. Being able to just go, well, I'm going to use these anti-fallback tricks to prevent that from happening. And I'm also going to be using the stickying objectives when I kill things to mitigate that as well. It's just an absolutely brutal combo, I think, in the current meta. So keep an eye out for variations on this list. I think there's some people that might take, you know, instead of the Blood Crushers, they might take Skull Taker and Bloodletters and whatever it's called, the Skull Master. Not a Skull Master. The hang on, let me just get it right. The Blood Master. Sorry, this is very similar names. They might put a Blood Master with the Bloodletters and then get a second unit of Bloodletters with Skull Taker in it, and then do more of an infantry theme. But either way, this list here has all of the elements to maximally take advantage of all of those crazy enhancements and crazy stratagems from this new detachment. So yeah, so that more or less rounds out my thoughts on the Blood Legion detachment. I would love to hear what you guys think, however, in the comments section below. Let me know if you're excited, potentially you're a World Leaders player that's looking to potentially pivot into a Blood Legion, give that a go for a little bit, or are you a Chaos Demons player or a Chaos Space Marines player who's looking to try out this new detachment? And also let me know if you would like to see a similar style review done for the other gods. I picked out this one because being a World Leaders themed channel, I know there's a lot of Khorne fans within my community, so I decided to do this video. However, there's also a lot of Chaos Space Marine players in this community, and they are big fans of Demons of all sorts. So let me know what you guys think, if you would like to see the other legions and the other Chaos gods represented in a video like this. And yeah, I look forward to seeing the results that people are able to put up with this Blood Legion. Just a last minute thing that I want to add is that if you would like to show your support for this channel, you can do so over on blogforthebloodgod.com. We've got links to where you can purchase merchandise that helps the channel grow, and also access to our Patreon and our Discord server, where we do one-on-one coaching, we share work in progress stuff, we share memes, we chat, we talk Warhammer, and depending on the tier that you go on, if you go on one of the upper tiers, we do regular phone calls and meetings and things like that, where we can really dial in your strategies, talk about your lists in the preparation for upcoming events, that sort of thing. So if any of that is what you're interested in, check out blogforthebloodgod.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.